Hi everybody, welcome to today's lesson on formal fallacies. Today we will be discussing affirming the disjunct. First we'll take a look at a few examples of how affirming the disjunct is employed in natural language as a means of argumentation. Then we'll take a look at its propositional form, and finally we'll take a look at a proof of its invalidity. So let's get right into it. How is this formal fallacy employed through natural language? We have a few examples here. The first example starts with premise 1, I forgot my password, or my account was hacked. Premise 2, I forgot my password, therefore my account was not hacked. And we can intuitively tell that this is unsound reasoning. Just because I forgot my password, it doesn't follow that my account wasn't hacked. We can also imagine a scenario in which I forgot my password and my account was hacked, as unfortunate as that may be. The second and third examples are a little bit more difficult to tell that they are unsound. The second example starts with premise 3, morals are ground in sociocultural norms, or morals are ground in divine revelation. Premise 4, morals are ground in sociocultural norms. Therefore, morals are not ground in divine revelation. And the last example here, premise 5, reason is the source of all knowledge, or sense experience is the source of all knowledge. Premise 6, sense experience is the source of all knowledge. Therefore, reason is not the source of all knowledge. Next, let's take a look at its propositional form. If we recall each argument, we start with a first premise that offers a this or that choice. We have a disjunction. The second premise affirms one of the disjuncts, and we conclude that the other disjunct is false because the other disjunct is true. In order to get its propositional form, we'll take these two premises here, we'll make a conjunction out of them, and we'll take our therefore symbol, we'll turn that into implication. And we have to ask ourselves, is this propositional form valid or true in every interpretation? In order to do that, let's hop over to Excel and fill out this truth table that we have here. What you see is just the skeleton of the truth table. All we have to do is punch in our values to find out whether or not this form is valid. Since we have two propositional variables, we know that we will have 4 interpretations. That is, one in which P is true and Q is true, one in which P is true and Q is false, one in which P is false and Q is true, and one in which neither P nor Q is true. Let's copy that over to our other columns while staying consistent. Next, let's handle our negation operator. That's just going to return the opposite value of what we see here in column H. So where we see a 1, we'll punch in a 0, and where we see a 0, we will punch in a 1. Next, let's take care of column B, which is our disjunction operator. And we know that the disjunction operator returns a value of false if and only if neither of the disjuncts are true. If at least one of the disjuncts is true, then it will return a value of true. In our first interpretation, P is true and Q is true, so we'll have a true there. In our second interpretation, P is true and Q is false, we'll have a true there. In our third interpretation, P is false and Q is true, we'll have a 1 there. And in our last interpretation, both propositional variables are false, so we will have a false there. Next, let's take care of column D. This is our conjunction operator, and if we recall, the conjunction operator returns a value of true if and only if both conjuncts are true. If not, then it returns a value of false. In our first interpretation, we have a true and a true, so the conjunction operator will return a value of true. In our second interpretation, we also have 2 values of true, so the conjunction operator will return a value of true. In our third interpretation, we have a value of true and a value of false, so the conjunction operator will return a value of false. And in our last interpretation, we have a value of false and we have a value of false, so the conjunction operator will return a value of false. And finally, let's take a look at our main operator column. We have our material implication, and if we recall, material implication returns a value of false if and only if the consequent is false and the antecedent is true. Otherwise, it returns a value of true. In our first interpretation, we have a true antecedent and a false consequent. So we'll have a value of false there. In our second interpretation, we have a true antecedent and a true consequent. So we'll have a true value there. In our third interpretation, we have a false consequent and a false antecedent. So we have a vacuous truth there. And in our last interpretation, we have a false antecedent and a true consequent. So we'll have a vacuous truth there as well. And there you have it. We do see that affirming the disjunct is indeed an invalid form of reasoning, since we do have a value of false for one of our interpretations. And that's the lesson for today. Thanks for coming by, and until next time, may reason be with you.